Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Hope you had a good holiday. I just wanted to do a bit of a follow-up video to the my thoughts on this game on the Harvestella video that I did about a month ago after playing, 50 to 60 hours. Um, this is going to be kind of a me talking and reading off the script one more than showcasing things. So feel free to have this on in the background rather than having to sit and watch. But if I figured out how to do it correctly, the link to the video that I'm talking about will be in the iCard up in the video, but either way, I'll have it linked in the description down below. So, first thing I want to say though is that I did come off a bit harsher in that video than I meant to towards Harvestella. Um, my basic summary of the game boiled down to the fact that I consider the game to be alright, good enough, but that I was disappointed that it wasn't better. Um, that said, as is often the norm on the internet, people seem to think that I hate the game just because I wasn't singing its praises, and that couldn't be further from the truth. If I hated the game, I wouldn't keep playing it for over a month later, every week on the channel. So, most of my points of analysis on the game's story, music, and so on boiled down to basically being it's not so good that X, but neither is it so bad that Y. So, for example, the game's music, which I make fun of in every stream, it's not so good that I want to just put down my controller and just listen to the music, like with some games. But neither is it so bad that I just completely turn off the audio entirely. So one example of the people that are liking and hating these comes from one of the comments on that video. I'm going to read it in its entirety. It's rather short. It's just a couple short sentences. Quote, I don't think that you like the game. You said nothing nice about it. You compared it to wildly successful games. It sounds like there's something else that you would rather be playing. End quote. So let me break that whole statement down. It's 4 sentences. First, I'm going to address their last point first before coming around to the beginning, as the first and last statements are really connected. Yes, there's absolutely other games that I would rather be playing, and I've never hid that fact. I often remark in my streams that I've barely touched the game in the past week, because there's other games that I want to play, that I'm not playing my separate playthrough, which we're playing right now. Mostly it's just the stream one. I'm ahead in my main one from where I am in the stream. Now, me having something that I would rather play is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just how our own likes and dislikes work, as well as the whole idea of, oh, I have, a backlog works. We all know that one person that has that one game they'll spend 10 hours a day playing because they love it, whether it's DDR, Stardew Valley, whatever. That doesn't mean that they hate other games, it just means they probably have other games in their backlog because they have something that they love more than they love those games. Which brings me back around to the beginning of their statement, about me not liking the game. A lot of people seem to confuse not liking something for actively disliking it. Now, I don't like racing games. Doesn't mean that I hate them, or that if I was together with friends and someone wanted to get a few rounds of Mario Kart going, that I'd tell them to go pick something else or pack sand or whatever like that. I'd probably even have fun playing those few rounds of Mario Kart. Because in that thing, it's not about the game, the racing game. It's about the friends and the camaraderie, the story you get from it. That said, neither do I spend my limited time playing racing games all by themselves. Getting better and better at them. It's not a genre that I care for particularly. So, there's a difference between not liking and actively disliking. And that said, I do kind of like Harvestella. But like I said before, there's other games even within the same life sim RPG hybrid genre that I prefer more, plus other games of other genres as well. I said that in the initial video, that while I wish this game had been better as it came out, I do hope Square Enix continues and tries to expand on this series and do better and better with future titles. Comparing it to its next closest competitor of Rune Factory, that's the same thing that happened there. it was a lot of issues with the first Rune Factory. Most fans of the series would not recommend you go back and play it. But Xseed kept at it, they kept improving, and with each title, they've improved it to now, people are debating, well, what's the best one? Is it 4? Is it 5? What are the pros and cons of each? And for Harvestella, I hope Square Enix does the same. There is promise here in this game. I just feel it needs more polish, especially considering the developer. I made a similar comparison in that last video about how the social link system in the Persona series, starting with Persona 3, it was the worst. It's considered the worst of the series. Not that they're bad, but they got better with each title. And I hope that happens here. So, what's another example of a game series that I do love, I even so much love, but I have other things that I would rather play? Well, Dragon Age. I enjoy the world of the games, the gameplay I love as well, but I've never played Inquisition. I have, never even finished Dragon Age 2. I've got 100% done everything in the first game, in Origins. And I got pretty late into the second act in 2, but something else came along. I don't remember what it was that I was more interested in. It may have been a new Mass Effect. I liked Mass Effect more than I like Dragon Age. So I never finished Dragon Age 2, and because of that, I never went on to Inquisition. Doesn't mean I don't like it, it's just I like things other games more, and I prioritize those things that I do enjoy because, again, we have limited free time. I work 40 hours a week, and for 3 years prior to about the start of this channel, I was working more than that. As a truck driver, you're set at a scale of thing of about 70 hours across 8 days, so it's a little over 60 hours a week. Now, as for not saying anything nice about this game, I do think that saying, hey, I hope they try this again and they improve on it, that counts as nice. Now, yes, I absolutely was critical of this game. And we do need to address all the aspects of a game. And yes, we need to hold the developers accountable for things. Final Fantasy XIII got blasted hard when it first came out. And rightfully so in many ways. But that doesn't mean that it was a bad game. I like Final Fantasy XIII. Flaws and all. I like Harvestella. But just like with Final Fantasy XIII, I can and should expect the better from a developer with as much experience in making JRPGs as Square Enix has. There's a difference between being critical of the flaws of something and just not being nice about it. Which leads to, again, that their last point about my comparison to other wildly successful games. Now, first off, comparisons are often going to be used to help others get an idea for this, especially for a new IP. You're like, well, what other games are this like? So saying that, yes, it's kind of like Stardew or Rune Factory, and that it's that hybrid thing, is to be expected. And, yeah, I compare it to Stardew Valley. You know what? That's one of those great ones that I compare it to. Wildly successful. You know what? It was a labor of love made by a single man. It's a game that helped spark a new love and appreciation for the farming/life sim genre. We got with its release, we got a reinvigoration of reigniting a lot of dormant series like Rune Factory, Story of Seasons, and so on. We've got a whole bunch of new things. We got Graveyard Keeper, Gleaner Heights, and so on, made by one man. So yes, I'm going to compare this to that. It is the game that most people know of in that kind of farming life genre these days. But even in that last video, I said that's not entirely a fair comparison. Stardew and even Rune Factory are much heavier on the farming life sim aspects, and whereas this one is much heavier on the JRPG. So yeah, I said, okay, let's compare it to other JRPGs. You know what the first JRPG I compared it to was? Final Fantasy. Yes, absolutely wildly successful. It's also made by Square Enix. It's the same developer that makes Harvestella. And it got its start as a this is our last ditch effort game. And, you know, think of it this way. When an artist comes out with a new painting, or we find a lost painting from an old master, let's say Michelangelo, you know, we're gonna go. You can't have critics going, well, you can't compare that to their other more successful works. No, it's unheard. No, they're gonna compare it. It gives you an idea of their evolution of their style and more. It's the same thing. Stephen King releases a new book. It's immediately compared to his entire body of work, while also being criticized and judged on its own merits. So, not only can I should be comparing Harvestella to other Square Enix titles, I should be. Um, especially when you consider that Square Enix is one of the biggest name in the realm of JRPG developers, if not the biggest. They're responsible for so many wonderful game series and single games, ranging from Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, The World Ends With You, Chrono Trigger, Kingdom Hearts, Nier, the Trials of Mana, Children of Mana, etc., the Mana series, Star Ocean, and so many other huge names. If there's anyone that we can be critical of for making a JRPG, it's someone with a resume like Square Enix has. Now, at one point during that last video, I did discuss that there was, if I were a more dedicated review channel, like say SwitchUp does, um, that where I use like the 1 to 100% grading scale, I would probably rank it in the 70, the 60 to 70 range, maybe the mid 70s. And that's one of the reasons why I don't do that, is because people think because of how overblown game reviews are, that anything lower than 85-90% is just hatred for it. And here's the thing. This game has its flaws. I mean, if you're watching my gameplay here, you're sitting me, I'm just doing fishing. You can see the textures, you can see it's low res, and yes, I'm playing on Switch. And it looks better in handheld than docked, but this is played on other systems, and it's not that huge a difference graphics-wise. So, in that review, I also pointed out things that are complaints for other people, but not necessarily for me, such as the inconsistent implementation of voice acting. When this game first came out, in that first week or so, I was looking at reviews elsewhere, and some people were like, oh, well, there's no voice acting, and that was one of the things I pointed out early on, is there is, but it's combat dialogue stuff. It's not story dialogue. And, some people were expecting this to be more like, especially because it's from Square Enix, a big name, that it to be more like Mass Effect, where everything is voiced, or like Persona, where all the story stuff is voiced, but other smaller stuff like side quests and all that isn't necessarily going to be. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, yes, it can get over the top at times if you're sitting there in combat, or you're doing your farming and you're doing the spamming and the voices going over and over and over and over from the fairies. Rune Factory has the same issue. I'm critical of it in Rune Factory 5 as well. But another example that I didn't bring up in that previous video is the choice to have the top right corner where your date and time is. Have, when it changes over the hour, it gives a brief flash. Well, there's a thing that I'm not going to say it's common, but it's happened enough times that I've caught it on stream. I've had it happen 4 or 5 times off screen, where the entire right side of the screen suddenly goes green from that flash, and it stays for a few seconds. That is a graphical issue that should have been addressed, and still has not. The game has not been patched in the nearly 2 months that it's been out now. So, kind of finalizing my points here. Like I said in that last video, I don't picture Harvestella as the central game for this channel. I do still like playing it, and I plan to continue to do it until we finish with the streams, and then move on. But it's just one game, and it's not a game of the quality of something like Stardew, that is constantly being expanded and so on, that I could build as a single game for the channel. And it's because it's just a single game, it's not a series either. And this game's central premise, or this channel's central premise, is not a single game. It's about the life sim RPG hybrids, which can range from anything that is, heavier on the farming life sim side, such as Stardew, but also the My Time in Portia, My Time in Sandrock games, to the more RPG heavy titles, such as Harvestella here or Persona. Um, there's no central main series to this channel yet, but this game can't be it, simply because, it's not a series. And it's still just it's not a good example of a game in the genre. Now, Rune Factory, Persona, Atelier, and many other series that fall under the same umbrella could be their central thing, and they keep getting better as they develop. And so I hope that Harvestella does the same as those series. They all started off with okay, but got better. For the Atelier, compare it to, Rorona, to any of the Ryza titles, or Sophie 2, or Lulua. The series gets better. And I look forward to the day when Harvestella 4 comes out and it's actually a contender within this genre. But Harvestella 1, this version, just Harvestella, isn't there. Not yet. And that's not inherently a bad thing. It just means it's a shaky first attempt at the hybrid. And means that Square Enix has room for improvement when they make future titles. Anyways, that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. If you want to see more videos about Harvestella or some other titles in the same genre, hit the subscribe button, hit that like button. And for now, I'll catch you guys next time. Have a good one, and I'll catch you with next week.